Dear Chosen One, you didn't just offer them your affection. You allowed them to enter the most sacred part of your being, not through words, but through presence. You gave them access to the part of you that wasn't guarded, the part that carries your light, your truth, your essence. And instead of honoring that, they played. They tested boundaries. They misread your spiritual openness as weakness, not realizing that what they were touching wasn't just your heart. It was a divine assignment. They thought they could taste your power and walk away unchanged. But nothing stays untouched. Once it meets a soul like yours, there's a reason their nights are no longer peaceful. A reason your image appears when they close their eyes. No matter how far they've gone, no matter how long it's been, they didn't fall in love with just a person. They encountered a portal, a mirror of their higher self. And instead of choosing transformation, they chose ego. Now, the consequence lives with them in silence, in their sleep, in those unexplainable moments where they feel your presence, your energy, your absence, as if it never really left. Because in truth, the soul remembers what the ego tried to erase. If you've ever wondered why someone who hurt you still seems energetically attached, if you feel their pull even after the connection ended, this message is for you. There's something deeper happening beneath the surface. A spiritual law that was activated the moment they broke your trust. And once you understand it, you'll no longer carry this as a wound, but as a revelation. If this resonates already, write in the comments, "I protect my sacred energy." And if you feel called, stay with me until the end. Because what happened to you wasn't a coincidence. It was a wake-up call from the divine. You thought you had finally found someone who could see you. Not just your smile or your presence, but the energy behind it. You opened the gates of your soul little by little, trusting that this was someone who would understand the language you didn't speak with words. And in the beginning, they made you feel safe, curious, seen. But slowly, something shifted. They began to get comfortable not with your heart, but with the access. They realized you were spiritually different, and instead of meeting you there, they used it to elevate their ego. They tasted your frequency and mistook it for control. They weren't ready for the weight of who you are. They started pulling back, then pulling you in again. One day warm, the next cold. One moment deeply connected, the next distant and vague. You felt it, not just emotionally, but energetically. Your spirit knew it before your mind could explain it. Something sacred was being touched, with dirty hands. But still, you stayed, hoping love would awaken truth, hoping your light would be enough to stabilize the chaos you felt growing inside them. You didn't realize yet that what you were offering wasn't just affection. It was power, not dominance, but the kind of spiritual power that reveals, purifies, and awakens whatever it touches. And that's what scared them. Because deep down, they saw it. They saw what you carried. They saw the kind of peace that can't be faked. They recognized the depth of your intuition, the way your silence said more than their words. And when people are not ready to rise, they reject what invites them to grow. So instead of honoring your gift, they minimized it. They called it too intense. They avoided your eyes when you spoke from your heart. And in doing so, they violated a divine connection. They broke an unspoken covenant, not one written in this world, but one encoded in the spirit long before you ever met. It took you time to realize that what you were feeling wasn't just heartbreak. It was spiritual betrayal. The grief wasn't only from what was said or unsaid, It was from what was desecrated. You gave someone the chance to experience your most sacred self, and they used it as a mirror to avoid their own. You weren't just mourning the relationship. You were mourning the misuse of something holy. And that's a kind of pain most people don't talk about. The pain of knowing you showed up in truth. And someone else used that truth as a way to feed their illusions. At some point, you began to question yourself. You asked if you were being too much, too spiritual, too sensitive. You wondered if maybe you misunderstood everything, if perhaps you imagined the connection, if you were just another lesson in someone else's journey. But something inside you kept whispering, no, this was real. You could feel the residue of the bond, the way your soul felt entangled even after silence set in. You could sense their presence in the spirit, not because you were obsessing, but because something still wasn't resolved. That was the signal, the tether, the spiritual imbalance trying to correct itself. The truth is, you were never confused. Your intuition was speaking the entire time. You felt the shift before it showed. You knew when the honor left the connection, when what was once mutual began to feel extractive. What you called love became a transaction, not because you changed, but because they didn't rise with you. And here's what most people won't admit. When someone can't match your depth, they try to reduce you. They belittle your gifts. They make you feel as if your purity is a burden. But it was never you that was too much. It was their container that was too small for what you carried. Eventually, everything broke. The communication faded. The energy turned cold. And still, something in the spirit wouldn't let go. That's when you started to feel them in ways you couldn't explain. A dream, a name on a screen, a sudden wave of emotion that didn't belong to you. It felt like they were trying to reach you, not in the physical, but in the ether. As if the part of them that once touched you now couldn't forget the warmth of your soul. And that's where the shift began. The pain that once lived in you started echoing in them. They thought they could walk away without consequence, that your silence meant closure, that your distance meant defeat. But what they didn't understand is that spiritual connections don't dissolve like ordinary ones. When someone touches your soul and walks away without accountability, they leave pieces of themselves behind and carry fragments of you they cannot digest. That's what began to haunt them. Not guilt in the mind, but weight in the soul. The moments they dismissed as casual became anchors. The memories they tried to suppress became restless visitors in their sleep. The very presence they once underestimated became the echo they couldn't silence. They may not speak of it. They may act unbothered, successful, emotionally detached. But when the lights go out and the world stops performing, their subconscious begins to whisper the truth. And in that silence, they see you. Not how they want to, but how you truly are. They see your eyes, the ones that held compassion for them even in their chaos. They hear your voice, the one that offered forgiveness before it was ever deserved. And they feel your absence, not as a void, but as a reminder of the divine they mishandled. Dreams don't lie, and their soul knows exactly what they lost. It's not obsession, it's consequence. Not a curse, but a mirror they cannot escape. You didn't do anything to punish them. In fact, you've probably spent more time healing than wishing harm. You took the high road. You stayed silent, prayed, released, grieved. You tried to rise above it. But the spiritual world has its own order. It's not about revenge. It's about restoration. And in that order, what was misused must return to balance. That's why they dream of you. That's why their spirit calls your name when their mouth won't. Because the soul seeks resolution, and they're still tangled in what they violated. You see, when someone disrespects a divine connection, they don't just break your heart, they disrupt their own alignment. And until they confront the truth, they remain spiritually exiled. Nothing feels quite right. No other connection feels whole. They may chase distractions, people, achievements, but deep down, there's a shadow following them. A whisper that says, "You mishandled something sacred." And it's not your presence that haunts them, it's your absence. The part of you they tried to control, but never truly understood. That's what echoes in their dreams. That's what keeps their peace from returning. You, on the other hand, have been learning to breathe again, to reclaim the spaces they once occupied. You've sat in silence, letting the waves of pain pass through. You've looked at your reflection and chosen to love yourself deeper, wiser, stronger. You've realized that being chosen doesn't mean being used. It means being responsible with your own energy and discerning with whom you share it. And even though the scar remains, so does the clarity. You now know the difference between someone who sees you and someone who simply wants to feel your light without earning it. That's the lesson they triggered, and the growth they never expected. But that doesn't mean their energy has stopped reaching for yours. When someone has tasted the presence of a soul like yours, they carry the imprint forever. And when they wake up from yet another dream, breathless, confused, aching, they won't be able to tell the difference between memory and message. Their spirit will keep searching, not because you belong to them, but because you were the closest thing to truth they've ever touched. And that truth doesn't leave quietly. It leaves a trail. It leaves questions. It leaves a longing that no physical pleasure or surface-level connection can satisfy. There will come a moment, and it may already be happening, when they realize they didn't just lose a person. They lost a sacred chance, a doorway, a healing, an elevation. And that realization will not come with fireworks or apologies. It will come in silence, in a moment of stillness, when they finally understand the weight of their actions. And it won't be because you reminded them. It will be because the soul cannot lie forever. Eventually, the truth catches up, even in sleep, especially in sleep. And that's where the justice lives, in the space where ego cannot edit and spirit is forced to remember. There's something powerful that happens when a divine soul is mishandled, not in the eyes of the world, but in the silence of the spirit. A sacred balance is disrupted, and the soul that caused harm begins to feel the reverberations, even if they can't explain why. They might call it anxiety, sleeplessness, strange emotions. They'll try to label it with psychology or drown it in distractions, but nothing will fully numb it, because what they're feeling is the absence of alignment, the pull of a connection they refused to honor. And when a person plays with spiritual power, they activate a force they cannot manipulate. Divine accountability. You may not have seen it happen, but something shifted the moment they broke your trust. There was an exchange in the invisible, a reordering. Where you felt small, you began to expand. Where they felt powerful, they began to fragment. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly, something inside of you rose up, a quiet strength, a deeper knowing. The more you grieved, the more you reconnected with your own essence. And as you ascended, they began to spiral. Not because you cursed them, but because they couldn't carry the weight of the energy they disrupted. And now, in their dreams, that imbalance speaks back. The spiritual realm is not cruel. It is just. It doesn't punish out of vengeance. It reveals through reflection. That's why they see you when they sleep. That's why they feel your presence when they're alone. It's not your spirit clinging to them. It's their soul remembering what it mishandled. And memory is not always merciful. Sometimes it lingers as a teacher. Sometimes it returns as a mirror, showing them not what they lost, but who they refused to become. Because being near you required growth, and now their refusal is what keeps them stuck in loops they don't understand. Meanwhile, your silence became your sanctuary. You stopped chasing clarity and allowed divine wisdom to unfold. You stopped explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding it. You stopped questioning the depth of your spirit just because others couldn't. Meet you there. And in that sacred solitude, you remembered who you are. You didn't just heal from their betrayal. You transmuted it. You used it as fuel to rise. And that's why they feel the loss now more than ever. Because what they rejected wasn't a version of you. It was the path to their own healing. And that realization burns quietly. Every time they remember your name, it stings. Not because you caused them pain, but because your presence required truth. You were never here to entertain egos. You came to awaken souls. And when people aren't ready, they will label you, mock you, even discard you. But your spirit was never here to be liked. It was here to be real. And that kind of presence leaves an imprint. They may try to replicate it, replace it, recreate the feeling with someone else, but it won't work. Because no one can carry what you carried. No one can reflect what you reflected. Your light was encoded with a message only their soul could hear. And now, it echoes in silence. It's not your job to fix it. It's not your burden to carry the weight of their lessons. You did your part. You loved. You showed up. You offered your truth. What they did with it is their responsibility, not your identity. And if they're now haunted by what they lost, that's between them and the divine. You're not here to play the role of their closure. You're not here to rescue someone from the consequences of ignoring what was sacred. You're here to keep rising, to keep expanding, to keep protecting the frequency that once got used, but will never again be misread as weakness. The dreams they have of you are not romantic fantasies. They are confrontations. They are messages. They are the soul's last attempt to make peace with the truth. And maybe one day they'll understand what they did. Maybe they'll reach out, hoping to rewrite the story. But by then, you'll be somewhere else, not just physically, but spiritually. You'll have evolved into someone they can no longer access. Because what they lost wasn't just love. It was a chance, a doorway, a moment of divine realignment. And now, it lives only in dreams, replaying over and over until they finally face what they broke. There's a sacred weight in being the one who loved purely, the one who saw the potential, who felt the calling, who tried to build something real in a world addicted to illusions. And sometimes, that role comes with heartbreak. Not because you were wrong, but because they weren't ready. They didn't recognize the value of what stood in front of them. They were drawn to your energy, but afraid of what it would demand from them, because your presence required evolution. And not everyone wants to grow. Some would rather escape the mirror than confront their shadows. So instead of rising with you, they rejected you, and now they live with the echo. But here's the truth no one talks about. When someone spiritually betrays a connection, they don't just walk away clean. They may look composed, but their soul starts to unravel. They begin to chase things that don't satisfy. They try to replicate the feeling you gave them, but it always comes back empty. Because it wasn't you they rejected. It was the version of themselves they were becoming around you. And now, their dreams are haunted not by guilt, but by the unfulfilled version of their own evolution. You were the catalyst, and they refused the transformation. That choice now lives inside their spirit, unresolved. It's not about revenge. It never was. You didn't wish them harm. You wanted healing, truth, connection. You prayed for them, even when they hurt you. You tried to hold space, even when they pushed you away. And that's what makes this even more powerful. Because your hands are clean. Your heart remained open, even after theirs closed. You didn't retaliate. You elevated. And that's why you feel lighter now. Because you didn't abandon yourself to keep them. You rose, even with a broken heart. And now, they're the ones carrying the weight of everything they tried to escape. Let that be your confirmation. Your pain was not in vain. Your love was not wasted. Your energy was not given to the wrong person. It was given with purpose, and that purpose is still unfolding. Sometimes, the lesson wasn't for you. It was through you. And now, the one who mishandled your light has become a student of the very truth they tried to silence. You don't need to see it. You don't need an apology. Their dreams already reveal more than words ever could. And deep down, they know. They know they broke something rare. And they know they'll never touch that energy again. You are not the one who lost. You're the one who was protected. The divine interrupted what your heart couldn't yet walk away from. And in doing so, it saved you from a deeper wound. You were spared, because what you carry is too valuable to be handled with ego. Your mission is too important to be entangled in cycles of confusion and half-love. That's why the disconnection happened. Not because you failed, but because you were being preserved. The dreams they now have of you, they're reminders of what happens when someone touches the sacred and turns away. They're echoes of a gate now closed. So don't let their silence confuse you. Don't let the lack of closure distort the truth. The connection was real. The betrayal was real. And the consequences are real. But you are not bound to their awakening. You are free. You are whole. You are moving into a timeline where only those who honor your spirit can enter. And while they're busy chasing memories, you're building new dimensions, new visions, new peace. Their dreams are fragments, but your reality is becoming more whole by the day. You were never left behind. You were being aligned. And now, it's your time. Time to release not just the pain, but the narrative. You are no longer the one who was used. You are the one who was revealed, the one who survived, the one who rose. What they remember in fragments, you now embody in fullness. They dream of what you were, but you've become something far greater. And that version of you? Untouchable, unreachable, unapologetically sacred. Their karma is memory. Yours is freedom. You've done the work. You've cried the tears in silence, faced the nights when the ache in your chest felt louder than your thoughts. And still, you chose growth. You chose light. You chose to keep moving, even when you didn't know where it would lead. That choice matters. That choice separated you from repeating the same cycles. And while the world might not celebrate it, the spiritual realm does. Because rising without revenge, healing without bitterness, and loving again without fear, that's sacred power. And you carry it now with more clarity than ever before. You see, the difference between you and them is that you listened. You didn't ignore the call. You allowed the pain to transform you. You let it show you where you needed boundaries, where you were still holding on to false hope, where your light was being dimmed just to keep someone close. And because of that, you're no longer chasing fragments of love. You're calling in what's real, not just with words, but with energy. You've become a new frequency, one that cannot be accessed by anyone still rooted in manipulation, confusion, or spiritual immaturity. That's the real shift. They don't dream of you because they miss you. They dream of you because they lost access to truth. Your energy woke something up inside of them, and now it won't go back to sleep. That's not your burden. That's their process. Their soul will have to walk that desert until it's ready to surrender. And maybe they will. Maybe they won't. But either way, you're not waiting for that moment anymore. You've been released. You've been restored. You're no longer trapped in the memory of what could have been. You're rooted in the reality of who you've become. And that's where your freedom lives now. So honor your journey. Honor the version of you who stayed soft in the face of betrayal, who held space for healing even when your heart was breaking, who chose wisdom over resentment. That version of you deserves to be seen, to be celebrated. Because without them, you wouldn't be here. Stronger, clearer, freer. That person didn't lose. That person laid the foundation for your becoming. And now, as you move forward, you carry their strength, not their sorrow, their lessons, not their wounds. And with each step, you return more to yourself. If they ever come back, it won't be because they've changed. It will be because their spirit is tired of running from what it broke. Don't confuse their return with reconciliation. Some people come back only to remember what they're not allowed to touch anymore. Be kind, but be clear. You are not a resting place for unhealed souls. You are a temple, a presence, a vessel of truth. And only those who honor the sacred will be permitted to stay in your field. Let their dreams remind them of that boundary. Let their restless sleep be their classroom. Because here's the truth. Chosen one, you were never ordinary. You were sent into their life as a divine interruption, a soul activation, a mirror they weren't ready to face. And that's why your absence now feels louder than your presence ever did. Not because of who you were to them, but because of who they refused to become through you. Let that truth sit. Let it ground you. You are not the one who failed. You were the invitation, and they declined. If this message has touched your spirit, write in the comments, "I protect what's sacred within me." Let that be your declaration. Let it be your affirmation. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you want to keep receiving these messages of truth and restoration. This is a space for the ones who carry deep wisdom, deep wounds, and deep callings. And if that's you, you're home here. You're not alone. I want to thank everyone who supports us through Buy Me a Coffee. Your support helps us improve our videos every day and always offer the best content. If you want to support us too, the link is in the first pinned comment. You were never just someone they dated. You were a divine encounter, a turning point. And now, your name lives not just in memory, but in prophecy. Let them dream. Let them wander. Let them remember. You've moved on. You've ascended. And the most powerful thing you can do now is stay aligned with your light. Because when you protect what's sacred, you don't need to prove anything. Your presence speaks, your spirit teaches, and your journey continues.